This churning molten core generated a powerful magnetic field. The field projected outward, surrounding Mars like a protective shield, blocking harmful emissions from the sun.
You have this constant pressure from the sun, which we call the solar wind. The solar wind is made up of protons, electrons, cosmic rays, all of these kinds of charged particles that could ionize the atmosphere, as we call sputter it away.
But eventually, Mars lost its protective shield and most of its atmosphere. The moment the accretion process ended, the planet began to cool.
The iron core was no longer able to generate this magnetic field, and then the solar wind started pounding the surface of Mars. That's a scenario that a lot of people believe.
The loss of atmosphere stripped the Martian surface of warmth and pressure. And since water needs both warmth and pressure to remain in liquid form, water is no longer stable on the Martian surface.
You put a pan of water out on Mars, it's going to evaporate very fast and try to freeze at the same time. One or the other will win out, but you won't have a nice liquid pan of water.
That's not to say, however, that there is no water on the planet at all. While liquid water is no longer stable on Mars, frozen water, ice, is a different story. And evidence suggests that still today, tons of water ice might lie just below the Martian polar caps. Locked within that ice might just be the holy grail of space exploration. They are visible through simple telescopes on Earth. And they are unquestionably the first planetary features noticeable during an approach to Mars through space. The Martian polar caps, mysterious snowy white ice swirls sheathing the top and bottom of the red planet.
It's actually what we call dry ice, frozen carbon dioxide. The atmosphere is very thin and it's nearly all carbon dioxide, so when it gets very cold, what condenses out is carbon dioxide snow, carbon dioxide ice.
But while the white caps are certainly a colorful planetary feature, it's not the frozen concentrations of CO2 themselves that are of most interest to scientists. It's what's thought to be hidden beneath the polar caps that could have massive significance. Lurking just below the topsoil may be millions of tons of frozen water. Water ice, hidden from view, appears to radiate out hundreds of miles in all directions from the poles. And leading scientists think it could be the residue of once vast oceans.
Likely the water is now frozen in a kind of permafrost beneath the surface. But maybe there are pressures and temperatures in various areas of Mars that have liquefied the ice and created perhaps aquifers.
We can see craters, an impact has happened. Asteroid has hit Mars, blown out a lot of stuff. It doesn't blow out dry powder like on the moon and make rays and rubble. It throws out kind of a muddy slurry of stuff. So the conclusion is that you're actually impacting into ice like northern Canada, permafrost layers, tundra kind of stuff.
Orbiting spacecraft have picked up strong indicators for the existence of water ice at the Martian poles. Remote measurements of soil composition have detected high levels of hydrogen. Water, of course, is 1 part oxygen and 2 parts hydrogen, so the possibility of ice hiding below the surface in those areas is overwhelming. But while strong evidence of ice at the Martian poles may be relatively new, speculation that water existed there became common more than a century ago. And its implication that intelligent life could also exist on the red planet elicited widespread anxiety on Earth for much of the first half of the 20th century. Astronomers pointed the first telescopes toward Mars in 1610. As spyglass technology steadily improved, the blurred image of the red planet drew ever closer to the eyes of earthly observers. By 1877, telescopes could enlarge the image of the distant planet so that it appeared roughly the size of a dime held at arm's length. Certainly not impressive by modern standards, but it was enough for the director of the Milan Observatory, Giovanni Schiaparelli, to attempt to sketch the Martian surface and name its geological features. Schiaparelli peered at the hazy, shifting visage night after night for months.
And he sees what he thinks are crisscross lines on the surface of Mars. Turns out later, what he saw isn't exactly what's up there, but still, through his crude telescope, that's what he could see.
The respected Italian astronomer sketched these lines and gave them a name.
Schiaparelli interpreted these lines as channels of some sort. He didn't really know. Well, the Italian word that he applied to them was canali. That word, translated to English, should have been translated as channels, but instead it got mistranslated as canals.
Since straight lines do not normally appear in nature, Schiaparelli's sketches gave birth to the idea that some form of intelligent life must exist on Mars. It was an arresting notion, widely debated among astronomers of the day. Later, in 1894, a wealthy Bostonian named Percival Lowell was so intrigued by this possibility that he paid to have a large telescope constructed on a mountainside in Flagstaff, Arizona. He spent the next 2 decades observing, sketching, and speculating about the red planet.
He convinced himself that he was seeing networks of straight lines on Mars, which he thought were canals. What was the big news of the day? The Panama Canal. That's what great planetary civilizations do. They build canals. So this was canals to bring the water down from the polar ice caps. Mars was cold and far from the sun and dry, and so he knew that, and so he thought, well, I have to move the water to live on Mars. Well, that idea just electrified everybody, that there was a civilization on Mars.
Against this backdrop, on Halloween night 1938, a young actor named Orson Welles broadcasted a dramatization of War of the Worlds, a novella by British author H.G. Wells, in which sinister Martians land on Earth and wreak havoc.
We now return you to Carl Phillips at Grover's Mill.
Ladies and gentlemen, here I am. Wait a minute, something's happening. There's a jet of flame springing from that mirror and it leaps right at the advancing men. Lord, they're turning into flames.
Thousands of citizens believed the invasion was real.
We're deeply shocked and deeply regretful.
The misunderstanding was short-lived, but even so, the broadcast only served to fuel public speculation about potential intelligent life on Mars. Mars, it had intrigued humankind for thousands of years. And in the mid-20th century, humans finally got a closer look at the mysterious planet. In 1964, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, launched a small exploration spacecraft toward the red planet. Its name was Mariner 4. It had a television camera, and its mission was to fly past Mars and send back pictures. It could only make one pass,